Welcome to a special edition of Go Vote Omaha. This is a candidate forum for the Omaha Public Power District Subdivisions 4 and 5, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Geri Simon, a League member and moderator for the forum. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes political parties or candidates. We present this forum solely for voter education. Here's the format for our forum this evening. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. We'll follow that with questions and answers. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds to answer a question. Questions will either be called in by our viewers, and please note the phone number on the screen and call in your questions, or prepared by the League of Women Voters. Following the question and answer period, we'll go to 1-minute closing statements. A timekeeper will signal the candidates when they have 30 seconds of time remaining and when to stop speaking. Before the forum began this evening, our candidates drew lots to determine their initial speaking order, and I'll introduce them to you in that order now. We have both candidates with us from Subdivision 4 for OPPD, and for Subdivision 5, one candidate. Unfortunately, Tom Mulligan is ill and was not able to be with us this evening. So the candidates participating will be Fred Ulrich, Subdivision 4, Craig Moody, Subdivision 5, and Rick Yoder, running for Subdivision 4. And now we'll go directly to our opening statements, beginning with Fred Ulrich.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this thing. This is a very nice opportunity for the candidates to get to meet and know our constituents in a public manner. I'm the incumbent on the OPPD board. I was appointed by Bob Kerry in 1986. And have proudly served OPPD since that time. I'm proud of the record that we have at OPPD, that we kept our rates way under the national average and the regional average. I look forward to serving in a new utility era of very much challenges that face utilities. It's a billion-dollar industry, and we have to really be on our toes to make sure this continues in the way it should. And I'm proud to represent all the people in District 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now for Subdivision 5, Craig Moody.
Thank you. I would too like to echo my gratitude towards the League of Women Voters. It's an exceptional service, and frequently I hear from voters that they refer back to the League of Women Voters guide often. So kudos to you all on this work. I'd also like to give my best wishes to Mr. Mulligan. If you're watching, I hope you're feeling better. There are really 3 reasons that I'm running for this board. The first is I think I bring a pretty good amount of expertise in the energy industry to the table, which is oftentimes not something that you get an opportunity to vote for. The second thing is, I'm really interested in OPPD and the board being a little bit more open and transparent to the public. I know that's been a priority lately, but I'd like to see them go further. And finally, as Fred mentioned, this industry is changing at lightning speed. There is a lot going on, a lot of new technologies coming at us, and so I'm really interested in helping OPPD look out into the future and ensure that over the next 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to be good.
Thank you. And our other Subdivision 4 candidate, Rick Yoder.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. I too think it's important, and I'm glad to be part of it. I would like everyone watching who is in Subdivision 4 to be a Yoder voter on November 8th. I have an engineering background, a mechanical engineering background, and I work for the Nebraska Business Development Center as a business consultant. My background in engineering is about energy efficiency, water conservation, and resource conservation. And a new task for me is working with innovations. I've been in public office before. I've been on the Murray-Conestoga School Board. I work in economic development with the Missouri River Corridor Alliance, focusing on southeast Nebraska. I'm running because I am interested in change. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our first question. Would you ever support privatizing public utilities? And we'll begin with Craig Moody.
Well, I think there's never say never, right? But with that said, I think it's highly unlikely that I foresee a scenario anytime in the near future where privatization makes any sense. We are very, very fortunate in the state of Nebraska to be 100% public power. there are multiple benefits to having public power, and I'm a firm believer in and hanging on to it, and I think with that said, not just hanging on to it, but nurturing it in a more meaningful way than maybe we have in the past. It's public power. We all collectively own it. We all own a share of this utility, and as Fred said, it's a $1 billion industry. We need to make sure that we're moving it forward in a really respectful, responsible way that ensures that we have a long future of clean and affordable energy. And in order for that to happen, OPPD needs to continue going down the path of really engaging the public and making decisions. And quite honestly, we as constituents need to be engaged in the process, attending board meetings and being involved in those decisions as well. It's a two-way street, but I think public power is something that is great for us, and we definitely need to hold on to public power in the state.
Thank you. Rick Yoder.
One of my three campaign promises is to preserve and respect the past, and in talking with voters, I think there's an overwhelming desire to keep public power public. There is, however, an assumption within the question that I'm going to contest just a little bit. We've already seen some privatization of public power. In fact, we wouldn't have wind energy in the state if it wasn't for a public-private partnership. And in fact, the joining of the Southwest Power Pool has brought in market forces that have created economic pressures on OPPD and the other public utilities that are market pressures. It's very similar to what privatizing public power argues for, the competition that comes out of that. And I think OPPD is challenged with meeting some of those, and I believe that my background is one that will help meet those challenges. Having said that, the base case, the value proposition for public power can't be beat. The profit motive is not there, and as long as they are not working to be a monopoly, but are working to find the efficiencies, I think the public power model is the best one to have.
Thank you. And now Fred Ulrich.
Yes, I'd like to echo the sympathies of both of my people to my left here that public power is definitely a very good benefit for Nebraska, especially District 4, whose many of the residents live far from the urban areas and benefit greatly by having the same rate that a neighborhood in Bellevue or in downtown Omaha benefits from. Those rural customers really benefit from having the public power aspect, and I'm determined to make sure that continues. As far as the challenges facing us, we've done a great deal with meeting with our constituents, with our initiatives to engage them in our decision process, as we did with not only rebalancing our energy portfolio, but other things as well. And we plan to continue doing that. I think we have a very good, solid team of senior management right now that can really make a difference in keeping public power public. Remember, George Norris said you got to run it like a business. You're elected, but it's not a political job. It's a business that you have to run. You're a board of directors, not a legislator. And that's what we've had for years and years on the OPPD board. And as someone who runs a business, who's actually had to make money running a business, not working for a university or not working for somebody else, but actually running a business, knows what it takes to keep the profit line going and keep the company solid and substantial. And I continue to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we'd like you to talk a little bit about infrastructure. What is being done and what should be done about aging infrastructure? And we'll begin with Rick Yoder.
So, well, some of what should be done with aging infrastructure has already happened. Fort Calhoun, which was running at a huge deficit for years, was actually, the board agreed finally to shut it down. The other aging infrastructure that needs to be dealt with is both the historic infrastructure associated with coal-fired power. There have been updates on that that are interim steps. Moving to natural gas in North Omaha is a good interim step. And in Nebraska City, it's one of 2 coal-fired power plants that has a lot of cleaning technologies that have been applied to it, more than other plants in the United States. So that's kind of a Band-Aid fix. What should be done, though, are 2 other things. One, the T&D, the transmission and distribution lines, those are the lifeblood for a grid system. And so there very definitely needs to be an investment in that. And it's not that OPPD hasn't been investing, but it's something that's going to be core to their business in the future as the other new technologies move in. The renewable energy technologies and energy efficiency technologies that reduce the consumption of electricity. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Sure. The utility industry, as we've all acknowledged, is really facing some very interesting challenges. But OPPD in the last 5 years, since Mo Dogman has been appointed to the Vice President of Transmission and Distribution, has joined an elite group, and we are leading in the score of improving our transmission and distribution systems throughout the district, not only in the urban areas, but also in the rural areas, which have been long neglected and sometimes overlooked. We've really made significant investments in that, and that's also being reflected in our stakeholder process, that people are responding to that. Now, in addition to that, we also have done some of the stuff that Rick talked about at the North Omaha plant, the Nebraska City stations, to eliminate or reduce emissions, and are looking to really new technology in the future, including batteries, solar. There's all kinds of things out there that are right on the cusp of being there. And we're ready and looking into it as our transition from nuclear power and coal power. It can't all be wind, it can't all be solar. There has to be something else, and we think those things are right around the future. And gas will, of course, still be one of those things, and coal will be too for the foreseeable future. But we can make it better, and we can make it cleaner, and we will do it in the best environmentally responsible way. Thank you.
Craig Moody.
Yeah, infrastructure is a big deal for OPPD because there's a lot of it, and when investing in it, it takes a lot of capital. The transmission and distribution really is going to be one of the most important things for OPPD in the future. When I look out longer term, this model of having centralized generation of energy, I think is going to go by the wayside. Now that's a long ways down the road, but I think that's the direction we're going. And really what that means is, old plants like Fort Calhoun, they get too expensive to manage. The same is going to hold true eventually for coal-fired plants, natural gas, and again, this is way down the road, but I think OPPD needs to be preparing for these changes. The model changes dramatically, and that means that OPPD becomes the institution that moves kilowatts around rather than creates all those kilowatts. So I think that's the direction we need to be looking. We've got to take care of what we have today. There's no doubt about it. There's a long march forward in order to make that transition happen. And some of the things that my colleagues have talked about. Battery technology, to me, is one of the big things that when that's ready, when the costs come down, that is a game changer because that resolves some of the intermittency issues with the renewables that we have. So it's a complicated thing. There's a lot of money invested in infrastructure, but again, I think we need to be looking out many years and making decisions that will get us closer to that future.
Okay, thank you. Well, Fort Calhoun was mentioned, so this next question is about Fort Calhoun. Do you agree with the board decision to close Fort Calhoun nuclear power plant? And what if the price of natural gas goes back up again? Should we ever consider reopening the plant, or is this now an irreversible decision? And we'll begin with Fred Ulrich.
Well, first of all, that was a very difficult decision. We were led to believe that the Clean Power Plan would reward existing nuclear plants with a substantial subsidy, similar to wind, to allow us to continue to create carbon-free energy. That did not happen. That, coupled with the continued costs from Fukushima expenses that required updates to the Fort Calhoun plant, required us to take a real hard look at the costs associated with the overhead at running that. And Fort Calhoun was really always crippled by the fact that it was so small. You know, originally, people don't realize this, but they originally planned on building 3 to 4 Fort Calhouns of the 475 megawatts. Instead of building a 1,200 megawatt plant, they were going to build 3 or 4. But 3 Mile Island happened right after Fort Calhoun 2 got started. It was canceled, and we were stuck with a very small nuclear plant. Overhead is the same for a 475 megawatt plant as it is for a 1,200 megawatt plant. It really put it in a cost bind. The decision to do it was very difficult because of the employees and the people involved who dedicated their lives to making safe, carbon-free electricity, and they did an excellent job. I have no criticisms about that, but I think the decision is irrevocable. I don't think there will be a change in that. I think we've got to move forward and do the best we can to shut it down economically as we can, and we're on our path to do that.
Thank you.
But it was very difficult to do.
Thank you. Craig, Moody.
Yeah, difficult decision indeed, but the right one. As Fred said, the plant, you know, OPPD was creating a megawatt hour for about $80 to $90 per hour versus OPPD could purchase a megawatt hour on the open market for $20. And when that's your trade-off, that just doesn't work economically speaking. That's not what's in the best interest for the ratepayers. I certainly look back and reflect on the fact that it was shut down a few years ago, and I wish that we could have maybe had a better conversation about whether or not that plant should have been reopened at that point. But moving forward, it was the right decision. I also think that one of the things that I think the board could do better and that I would try to work on is ensuring that communication around closing of the plant and the communications with employees and their families was a little bit better handled. Now, to the question about gas prices and what implications that has, OPPD today has quite a bit of capacity, and there's a difference between actual capacity and the ability to create energy versus actually generating energy. There's a lot of capacity that it has with respect to natural gas, but when it comes to actually using natural gas to create energy, it's only about 1% to 2%. So the risk is not significant when, if gas prices do go up, certainly that 1% to 2% will get a little bit more expensive, but it's not going to be significant enough to warrant keeping the nuclear plant open.
Thank you. And Rick Yoder.
Yeah, Craig has well articulated what will happen with when or if natural gas prices go up. It is not a risk it is not a business risk. As for Fort Calhoun, it was the right decision. It was long overdue. The story that everyone was led to believe that the Clean Power Plan was going to give a huge cost-beneficial credit to Fort Calhoun, I think is a story that is convenient for those who took too long to close down the plant. It should not have been reopened. Exelon, the contractor who OPPD hired at $2 million a month on average, according to the Chicago Tribune, wasn't able to cover the costs of their nuclear plant since 2009. So in fact, it was a bad business decision that is known in Economics 101 as the sunk cost fallacy. Any Husker fan knows that you don't throw good money after bad. If you've got a Frank Solich or if you've got a Callahan, kind of coach, you've got to let them go. You say goodbye to your investment. And that's what should have been done. They didn't do that, expecting all of the customers to pay for the continued employment of those absolutely valiant employees at Fort Calhoun who were part of the OPPD family. So it was a tough decision, but it was the right one.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, a viewer called in, and still about Fort Calhoun. Their question is, can't the site be cleaned up or converted to solar and use it for clean power instead of scrapping it? So we'll start with Craig Moody.
That's an excellent question, and quite honestly, I don't know the site well enough to be able to describe whether or not it could be used for solar energy or anything or otherwise. I'd like to assume that it's going to go into a safe store mode, and I think over the course of 60 years is how long it's going to take before Fort Calhoun is actually officially shut down and considered non-contaminated. And Fred might know that a little bit better than I. So I don't think you're going to have the opportunity to do much on that plant for about 60 years, which leads me to conclude that I think we've probably got better opportunities in other places for solar. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Rick Yoder.
Yeah, I don't have any information on what the viability is for any kind of site reconstruction or what you can do with the site after, at any point of time, from its official closure to through the 60 years of remediation. So I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think, as with any property owned by OPPD, it should be used for its highest and best use. But what those options are, I really don't know.
Okay, thank you. And Fred Ulrich.
Yes, did you read in the paper that, today, I think it was, or maybe yesterday, that the county up there has even toured the plant to investigate whether to turn it into a jail? Did you see that? That was pretty interesting. I had not known that. That would be kind of cruel and unusual punishment, maybe, but no, it'll be at least a decade before the plant is viable to be considered basically just the security people around it. But we hope that we're looking at options, and we've got some real specialists helping us that have shut down other nuclear power plants before, particularly in the East Coast. A consultant that's helping us that has done this before, and we're looking to use, because we have a big infrastructure there of substation and distribution systems right there, that perhaps solar, wind, something could be there, but that has yet to be decided. It's a ways out before we can make those decisions, but certainly it will be put to its best public use that we can do with it, and we intend to have it be as safe as it can be and shut down and as responsible as it can be. And I might also just add, even though there was a little blurb in the paper about 17 engineers quit early, but those were young kids that had just started. Those employees up there are still dedicated to shutting this down in the right and safe manner. And I just can't congratulate them enough that we will take care of this plant and its facilities.
Thank you. Here's our next question. Many months ago, it was reported that OPPD has an underfunded pension system. Do you think the plans to fix that will be adequate? Is there anything else that needs to be done? And we'll begin with Rick Yoder from Subdivision 4.
Yeah, I do not know the scope of the underfunding and what the assumptions are that projection is based on. I do know from talking with a previous board member that was around in the 90s, was on the board in the 90s, that he said at that time that OPPD set aside enough money in reserves to equal triple the closing costs of Fort Calhoun. Obviously, that money isn't there now. I think there has been a problem with OPPD being optimistic in its projections for several things, and it certainly is not unusual for any public agency to be optimistic about retirement plan gains or returns on their investments. Oftentimes, the estimates are 7 or 8%. I'm just speaking broadly now, not just of OPPD. And that is an issue for many public agencies. So the extent to which this may be a problem for OPPD, I don't know the numbers, but the possibility that it is a problem does concern me. So I think it's important to be very diligent in looking at the economic models that they have. Thank you.
Thank you. And also running for Subdivision 4, Fred Ulrich.
Sure, yes, we are underfunded. I think it's in the 75% range of funded and a shortfall of 25, something in that neighborhood. It varies from month to month. And obviously since the 1990s, the stock market performance has underperformed and has not kept pace. And we also have had dramatically had changes in the demographics of our retirees that live longer and require more expense and more care. So yes, we are on a program now with our new Senior Vice President of Financials to get this program in solid, 100% funded within the next 10 years. And we're not missing any payments. We're not behind by any means. For instance, the city of Omaha is at 50% or less. We're way better than, and the state of Nebraska is. We're really good, but Rick is right in that there was some optimistic forecasts on some of that 7% return stuff, and it just didn't materialize. And we've taken a much more realistic deal. As an example of some of our savings, just this week, we refinanced. You know, obviously, the way we borrow money to build power plants, et cetera, is through selling bonds. We refinanced $180 million worth of bonds to savings of $15 million. All it took was just to refinance it.
Thank you.
So there are savings there.
Okay.
And we will take advantage of them.
Thank you. And for Subdivision 5, Craig Moody.
It's an important issue, and you know, these gentlemen are right. The forecasts were much more aggressive than they probably should have been. With that said, it's still putting people's retirement at risk. Those people that get pensions, they're ineligible for Social Security. So this is really a really key component to what they get. Now, no, we're not missing payments today. And yes, we're better than the city of Omaha and the state of Nebraska, but that's a low bar, quite honestly. I think Edward Easterlin, the CFO, has done a good job of sort of tightening this up. I think he's got a good 10-year plan to get us back on track. But you know, this needs to be something that is a high priority for OPPD going forward, ensuring that our employees are taken care of, OPPD's employees are taken care of, and much the same way that we want to ensure that those people up at Fort Calhoun are taken care of as they work their way into a new job. You know, all of these people are counting on all of these commitments that the board and upper management is making with respect to their long-term retirement plans, and we need to be absolutely sure that they are taken care of. They're putting their blood, sweat, and tears into ensuring that 800,000 people have electricity every day. And the one thing we don't want to do is continue to shortchange them if that happens. So it's going to be really important to take care of it in the coming years.
Thank you. Here's our next question from a viewer. Will you work to reverse the fixed customer fee increases during your first year on the board? And they say back to the $10 or below. And we'll begin with Fred Ulrich.
Well, obviously that's been a sticky wicket for this board of directors. It goes back to running a business. As we explained during our assessment of that and our public outreach on that our fixed costs are 70% and our variable costs are 30%, and our way we were recovering that is just exactly opposite of that. And basically what we were doing was sending the wrong message to the people in Regency to put a solar panel on their house to get a subsidy from the kid that's working at the co-op and his wife is working at the library in Omaha County, who uses a lot of electricity because he can't afford a solar panel and he can't afford new windows and he can't afford a high energy furnace. So he's subsidizing that person in Regency. And that's the wrong message to send. Now I know there are poor people that use less electricity, and we're making every effort to assist those people. But OPPD is not a welfare agency. We can get them to the right place. And we also have one of the biggest raising money efforts in the city of Omaha for people that need utility help. We do a great job at that, and we're going to take care of those people. But there are very few of those. There are a lot more people that are living in trailers and rental houses in rural Nebraska that are subsidizing solar panels in Omaha that don't need to do that. And we have to send that right economic message. It's a business decision.
Thank you. Craig Moody.
So to the question, will I work to overturn it? I will. It takes the full board to do that, but I think, you know, this issue is the single most brought up issue when I'm knocking on doors and calling voters. Unequivocally, without question, people look to this decision and they just kind of shake their heads. They're baffled with respect to the decision. It's interesting that, you know, the example of Regency Solar versus a mobile home in rural Nebraska is brought up because the people that, I'm guessing that the people that live in that rural home are likely to see the biggest increase in their bill as opposed to those people that are using, you know, 1,000 plus kilowatt hours on a monthly basis. The negative impact will be on those people that use the least energy. And what OPPD has been preaching for years and years and years to customers is we want to help you. We want to be your energy partner in conserving energy and being more energy efficient. Yet this decision flies in the face of that motivation. It takes the payback period for a new furnace for energy efficiency efforts and it elongates it. The economic decision is much, much harder for people to invest in it. And that was admitted by OPPD management in a board meeting. So I think it was a wrong decision for a variety of reasons. That's just probably one of the bigger ones. And I do think there's a bigger opportunity for OPPD. Once we get smart meters, that's a game changer, and I think we can examine new pricing models so that we can price energy in the right way in the future. We can't do that yet. We'll pilot that soon, but by and large, the rate restructuring to me was the wrong decision.
Thank you. And Rick Yoder.
Yes, absolutely. The rate restructuring was the wrong decision. It's the reason I was asked to get into the race, and that's why I got into the race. So it was wrong. It was wrong because it hits people on fixed incomes the hardest, as Craig was pointing out. The idea that there's somebody, that we even have 800 people with solar panels that are impacting the 800,000 customers that are out there is just ludicrous. It's horse hockey. In fact, it was just the wrong thing to do. There's no way around it. There are ways that rates can be restructured so they can provide incentives for energy efficiency, and we can go down that path of discussion. The fact that someone would talk about protecting someone down in Omaha, there's something known as the energy burden. So the low rate that someone pays per kilowatt hour is not how people budget. People have a monthly budget, and a percentage of their budget that goes towards paying for energy is known as the energy burden. The household energy burden for all but Sarpy County, of the 7 counties that are in subdivision 4, are among the highest, not among, they are the highest increasing energy burden costs in the state. So the fact that someone would be worried about, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Here's our next question. OPPD uses methane gas produced by organic waste material as a renewable energy source through a partnership with Waste Management. Should we expand the use of methane and this kind of public-private arrangement to produce energy? And we'll start with Craig Moody.
Yeah, that sounds great. You know, methane is horrible for the environment. It's about 20 times more potent than CO2. So the less that we have of it emitting into the air, the better off we're going to be. And you know, we can work to mitigate climate change, certainly, which is a really important issue. If we have landfills, and again, I'm not super familiar with the diversity of landfills that we have in the OPPD territory, but we should not, any of those landfills that we have today, we should be tapping into them if we can. Obviously, there's an investment in that, but capturing methane from landfills is something that we should absolutely be looking at, and we should be looking to that as a renewable energy source. MUD is doing the same thing with one of their landfills. I like what OPPD is doing with the Pheasant Point landfill. That doesn't mean we should be collecting every single bit of yard waste and sending it up there. That's maybe a slightly separate issue for somebody else who's working on an election campaign. But yes, we should be capturing methane to the extent that we can, absolutely.
Thank you. Rick Yoder.
Yeah, I already said that public-private partnerships are a good thing. That's how we get our wind power for OPPD, through a public-private partnership. If I have no problem with any renewable, certainly methane is something we're going to deal with for a long, long time. It's a natural outcome of the decomposition of most of the waste that we have to deal with. It's also available. We've seen South Sioux City has put in methane capture and is generating electricity from that. It's a fine technology. I think there are many technologies with many sources of fuel that are available. It kind of gets to the idea of a distributed distributed generation in the energy system. And I believe that distributed generation offers a wonderful economic development opportunity for those southeast Nebraska folks, those people who have the high energy burden. It is an opportunity that reduces the risk on central generation. It offers an opportunity for local co-ops, for cities, for individuals who want to work to create and generate electricity. And I think OPPD should be working with those people who have innovation and initiative to provide power to everyone.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Well, and we certainly are, Rick. First of all, yes, the project in Douglas County has been very successful. As you may or may not know, the Sarpy County landfill was just retired here recently, but it has to reach a certain maturity for that methane gas to be viable to use to generate electricity, and we're certainly studying that and reaching out to those government agencies and private individuals that can help us develop that, but it's going to be a matter of time. And we're always looking for opportunities to do that as well. So I think that methane gas has been it's just an easy thing. I mean, it's pollution-free and it's cheap and it's really a reliable source. I would like to comment about the distributed generation. That's a really good thing. You know, there are even nuclear generators that they can have in neighborhoods. Now, I don't know if that technology is really viable yet, but it's out there. There's stuff like that out there that we're certainly looking at all of that to make sure that we're on top of what's available and what's out there. This is not like head in the sand. We're out there looking at all of these variable options. And the smart meters, that's another thing. Although I got a horrible hate letter from somebody the other day about a smart meter that thought they were invading their privacy. But in any event, you never know what people are going to think. But there are many innovative ways that we can change how all this works as we go forward. But the main thing we have to do is make sure we have the right business model.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, for our next question, put yourself in cost-saving mode. Do you favor moving your legal department in-house? And we'll begin that with Rick Yoder running in Subdivision 4.
Favor moving the legal department in-house?
Yes.
So I don't know the whys and the wherefores of this issue, so I can only go based on the question itself. I'm guessing that it's contracted out, and so I think, how do I feel about this? Generally, I think OPPD is certainly doesn't need to create a larger bureaucracy within the walls of OPPD, would be my gut reaction. And typically, if you can contract for services at the time that you need them, for the time that you need them, I think that's probably the best way to go. I am open to other information and other suggestions, but that is where I am without knowing more about the particulars of the information, of the situation.
Okay, thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Sure, I looked into this very issue many years ago when I first got on the board, and I looked at various other utilities and agencies that had in-house, and as opposed to our arrangement with Fraser Stryker. And I think that I echo Rick's sentiment that if you can avoid creating a bigger bureaucracy and contract us out, and they treat us with a great deal of high respect and good service, I have no complaints about their service or their abilities. As you may or may not know, they do occupy a couple of floors at Energy Plaza, and that's all kind of incorporated into the compensation. But it's been a really dynamic and good relationship, I think economic as well, and I don't see any reason to expand OPPD's payroll and bureaucracy by having guaranteed more people on staff, because as Rick said, we can use them as we need them, as we have more cases or whatever the issue is, and if we don't use them. So I think that's the best way to go, and I would recommend staying with that program.
Okay, thank you. And Craig Moody.
Well, my livelihood is not extraordinarily dissimilar from that of an attorney, which is to say, you know, we are a consulting firm and we have to sell billable hours. So I understand how the model works for the most part. And yeah, we spend a lot of money. Fraser Stryker's got a nice little contract with OPPD. I'd like to think that the board and OPPD management should pretty consistently reevaluate all of those contracts, whether it's legal or otherwise, to ensure that they're continuing to get the best deal, are hiring the right people. So, you know, I don't have a black or white answer. I think it's really a matter of evaluating every situation. I don't have an immediate reaction that suggests that we need to immediately outsource, or excuse me, bring that in-house. Because I think for the most part, I think Fraser Stryker has done a fine job and should continue to do so. So, yeah, again, to summarize, I think it's important to continually reevaluate those things. Not knowing a whole lot about it, I can't suggest one way or another which direction that decision should go.
Okay, thank you. Here's our next question. OPPD is to be commended on the recent move to stream board meetings online and then to make these videos available for viewers. Would you support also doing this for committee meetings? Would you support evening meetings more than once a year to help customer owners attend and follow what's happening with the board? And we'll start with Fred Ulrich.
Well, the committee meetings is a tough one. We've talked about that a lot, but we have a lot of business, so to speak, of consultants and other people from outside coming in. And if you're going to have those in the evening, it creates a lot of complications and more expense for a lot of different people. So that's always been kind of a sticking point on that for evening meetings. It is a business. It's just like the Cass County Commissioners. They don't meet at night. They meet in the middle of the day because they meet with various contractors and other business people. So I think streamlining it has been the ideal compromise. I would not be opposed to streamlining the committee meetings. I don't see why that would be a problem. You know, it's obviously a public meeting and people are welcome to come, so I would not be opposed to that. We do have, you know, closed sessions at the committee meetings if we're discussing personnel issues or some sort of a contract thing that we feel needs to be private. But yeah, I was going to say, I couldn't be the 30 seconds yet.
Okay.
It's stop yet.
Keep going.
She held up the wrong side. Yeah. But in any event, I would not be opposed to streamlining the committee meetings as well. And I understand people's desire to want to see what we're doing and how it's done, but to make a big production out of hauling this group around to just to be out in the public is really more work and harder on getting a conductive board meeting than you would think, and I would prefer that we have our meetings mostly during the day.
Thank you. Craig, Moody.
Well, that resonates with me because I think what Fred just said is a representation of the fact that this board needs to be a little bit more open and transparent to the public. I don't care how hard it is. OPPD is owned by its customer owners, and the walls that are there, whether physical or not, need to be broken down. Yes, they need to be in the evenings, and I'd like to see that 12 months out of the year. I don't care if anyone else around us, that they're, you know, I don't care if it's the city council or anyone, we need to start moving that needle. I do like the fact that they're simulcast, but I would also, you know, the reality is it's really hard for people to drive to downtown Omaha to attend a 10 a.m. Thursday morning meeting. So watching it one way is also not ideal. What can we do to give people sitting in Plattsmouth or anywhere else in the service territory the opportunity to actually engage the board in a productive way? We've got the technology. I think we can do it. So I'd like to see us continue to make strides in this area. This is really important to me. It's a public utility, and I think transparency is going to be really, really important in the future, and making sure that the board is accessible to anyone and everyone that wants to be engaged, I think is a really great thing for our democracy, and I'd like to see us continue to make progress there.
Thank you. Rick Yoder.
So as a former school board member down at Murray-Conestoga who was an attendee at all of the evening meetings, which is when we held our meetings, I would say there is no problem to having a committee meeting at night or a board meeting at night, and to even locate them around the district would be a good thing to do every so often. I think people can time shift pretty easily. If you have a meeting starting at even 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you expect 7 to 10 of your employees to be there, they don't have to come into work until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and they can time shift. That is not a great thing to ask of your employees. So I think any notion that this is difficult to do just doesn't carry water with a school board member, former school board member, or anybody who's had to go to public meetings about public issues. That's when most people can attend. Now, to echo what Craig said, I think the technology is there. I have attended the last 2 OPPD board meetings merely by watching it through the streaming. The last time there were some hiccups for my viewing, and I do feel constrained in not being able to have a conversation either with the people in the room or the board members. So there are ways to have asynchronous conversations, and I think we should use them.
Thank you. Our next question. Do you support continuing plans to comply with the Clean Power Plan? And we'll begin with Craig Moody.
Yeah, so the Clean Power Plan, obviously it's for the most part on hold. The Supreme Court has put a stay on it. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not the Supreme Court weighs in and what happens there. Nevertheless, I do believe that the Clean Power Plan was the right move. I was happy to see it move forward. I think ultimately some of the big questions are, number one, how is it going to be implemented in the state of Nebraska? That's still one big important question that the Nebraska, I believe the NDEQ is wrestling with. And then once that's determined, that will have a couple potential different impacts on OPPD. The good news is that assuming that the baseline year for the CPP is 2010, which I believe is what it's planned to be, I could be wrong there, all of the work that OPPD has been doing with respect to bringing on more renewables, taking coal and turning it over to natural gas has really taken them quite a ways down the road already. The big question is what happens in Nebraska City with that coal plant. And I don't know for sure what decisions need to be made, but again, I do think the Clean Power Plan is smart. I think it was a good move to really kind of push people towards that direction, and in order for us as a country to comply with the Paris Accord, I think it's something that we're definitely going to have to get to work on.
Thank you. Rick Yoder.
I have no problems with the Clean Power Plan being worked on. I think, in fact, if you look at the discussions among the regulators, you'll find that even though the Clean Air Act 111D went to the Supreme Court, that the authority still lies under the Clean Air Act, Section 115. So, move, counter move, it's still going to be something that is moving forward. The other thing, while NDEQ has said pencils down, no work on the Clean Power Plan, there are decisions being made among other states. Nebraska does not operate in a vacuum, neither does OPPD. We operate under the Clean Air Act in more than one airshed. What we choose to do here has impact elsewhere. What happens elsewhere has impact on us. And so we need to be watchful of those discussions. We need to be at the table where those discussions are going on, or other people will be making decisions for OPPD if we are not active and participating in those discussions.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Certainly OPPD has taken an activist role in this, even though we have not had the cooperation with state level government. But NPPD and OPPD and LES have been in constant communication regarding this, in aligning ourselves together and making preparations for what will become as we believe it to be. Obviously, there are still some contingencies out there that we don't know, but we are not just sticking our heads in the sand saying, well, Nebraska's not going to deal with it, so we won't deal with it. No, we're out there trying to do it. And we are going to be, by the time this comes around, at approximately 40% renewables. We're going to have our new emissions controls on both Nebraska City 1 and improvements to Nebraska City 2, and be reducing North Omaha's reliance on coal. So we feel we're on the right road to be in full compliance with the plan as we currently understand it. Now, we're going to be flexible. We know that. We have to be. But we will be ready to go when it comes around.
Okay. And let's see. Our last question is electric vehicles. There are obstacles for individuals to purchase and operate them. How would OPPD help overcome those obstacles? And we'll start with Rick Yoder.
So I'm not privy to the OPPD's current plans. I know that as an electric vehicle or a hybrid electric vehicle owner myself, I drive a Chevy Volt. I have been interested in encouraging OPPD to set up incentives that support the National Academy of Sciences report on how electric vehicles can move forward. The key on this is that electric vehicles provide an opportunity for income for OPPD in off-peak hours. As owners who use electric vehicles typically are charging them in the evening at their homes. That is the best place to help incentivize the use of electric vehicles. The second best place is in the workplace. And you can set up revenues and charging stations that are kicked off during peak hours. So I think it really is an opportunity that OPPD is missing if they don't pursue it. I have heard some dismiss this as saying there's not enough market penetration here, but for me, incentives need to be done when there's low market penetration. And the best place, according to the National Academies of Science for this, is to have incentives in the homes and in the workplaces. And so that's what I would recommend.
Thank you. Fred Ulrich.
Yeah, certainly 2 years ago, this was a much more popular topic with the fall of the gasoline prices, et cetera. It has really dropped off the national perspective. But as far as OPPD is concerned, we're still looking into charging stations and designing time of use rates for charging vehicles in the home and also at work. So that's definitely something we are developing and continue to do research on that in conjunction with working with the automobile manufacturers to see how these different vehicles charge, what it takes them to do it, how much it takes to do it, and timing that with the use of our plants and our peak loads. So that is definitely something we're working on. Even though it's fallen out of the national light, we understand it's eventually coming back. I mean, gas isn't going to be $2 a gallon forever. We all understand that, and we need to be ready when it comes time to really get the rollout of the electric cars. That we have a really reasonable set of rates to encourage that use of those electric vehicles. We don't want to discourage that at all, as Rick said. It's a revenue stream for us. But the other concern we have right now is the distribution in the various neighborhoods, that we have enough distribution system. If suddenly 50% of a neighborhood is charging their vehicles at night, can we handle that load? And we're studying that. It's not something you can decide in a minute.
Thank you.
We'll get it figured.
And
Well,
Craig,
on that point,
Craig
that takes
Moody.
us back to the first infrastructure question, I suppose. Yeah, electric vehicles are a big opportunity, and I think OPPD does need to do more with respect to incentivizing the market. The costs on EVs are coming down, which is great news. When you look at what Tesla is doing, I didn't get my reservation in, but I wish I would have, because there's some really, really great technology. But even just some round numbers, if OPPD were to offer a $500 incentive for people to install the charging equipment in their home, that would pay for itself back to OPPD within 1.5 to 2 years. So it's a really worthwhile investment for OPPD to make. Those off-peak hours, those evening hours, going into the middle of the night is really where there's a big opportunity for OPPD to sell more power. And quite honestly, the other thing that I'd like to see happen, taking a slight tangent, is to see all of Omaha's streetlights go to LED. That's going to result in a loss of revenue for OPPD, and I'd like to see that offset through a larger EV market, and I think we can incentivize that to happen.
Thank you. Now we'll move to our closing statements, and we'll begin with one of our candidates in Subdivision 4, Fred Ulrich.
Yeah, I'd like to once again thank you for hosting this event. I'd like to tell you what a really challenge it is to answer these questions and be truthful and forthcoming on them. Obviously, there's many opportunities I would have liked to rebut some of the statements made, but you can't always do that. So in any event, I will say one thing. I've got a report here before me of Cogent Reports, who's a national think tank in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that after conducting 50,000 utility customer surveys, this report reveals the most trusted brands among electric and natural gas customers represent the best practices in positioning themselves as trusted advisors. OPPD is on that list of 15 utilities in the United States that have the highest rating. 15 out of the several hundred utilities. OPPD is the most trusted advisor. And I'm proud to represent OPPD in that regard. And I think that the direction that we provided is part of the reason. And we will continue to do so and do our best that we can do. Thank you.
Now the candidate running in Subdivision 5, Craig Moody.
You know, the energy industry is changing really quickly right now. New technologies are popping up all the time. The costs are shifting dramatically. Wind and solar as just small examples. The cost has come down so dramatically, not only in the last 5 years, just in the last couple of years. New battery technology is coming at us quicker than I think we can imagine. So there is just a lot that's going to be changing in the next 5 years that will impact us for the next 20 or 30 years. OPPD's got to be on the ball. OPPD has to be looking out that far. OPPD has to be planning for all of these changes that are coming. That's not easy. It's a complicated task, but I think the board needs to set that vision and needs to hold management accountable for pursuing all the right technologies and doing the right things. And I think that, given my background, I think I have the right skill set and will do my best to ensure that OPPD is prepared to take advantage of the clean energy future.
Thank you. And now our other candidate running in Subdivision 4, Rick Yoder.
Thanks once again to the League of Women Voters for holding the forum. I think it's a great opportunity and it's a great event to have people share their ideas. Once again, please, for those voters in Subdivision 4 from Sarpy all the way to the Kansas line, please consider being a Yoder voter on November 8th. I encourage people to join me in respecting the past. Public power is a valued institution here. I think it's great that George Norris, the senator to the U.S. Senate, who was the father of public power, was a visionary. I hope that we can be as visionary in looking at the future. In his autobiography in 1945, he actually predicted electric planes. It was just 2 weeks ago when the first solar electric plane finished its round-the-world flight. So there are a lot of transitions that are happening, and I too feel like I am the right person for meeting that challenge and the change.
Thank you very much. The League of Women Voters would like to thank all our candidates for participating this evening. And we'd also like to remind our viewers that we have many forums upcoming. Tomorrow night at 7:30 on KPAO, you can see Legislative District 45. On August 16th, Legislative District 5. And on August 22nd, we'll have a live call-in show at 8 p.m. for the Papio NRD Districts 7 and 9. 7:30 on August 23rd, Legislative District 9 for the unicameral. August 29th, another live call-in show, which will be Millard School Board. And on August 30th, Legislative District 7, a recorded program at 7:30. The League of Women Voters reminds our viewers that we neither support or oppose political parties or candidates, and that we always present our forums solely for voter education. In addition to our other forums, the League has a series on the death penalty, which you can find at our League website, which is at omahallwv.org. For the League of Women Voters, I'm Geri Simon, reminding you to inform yourself about the issues and the candidates. And on November 8th, Election Day, go vote, Omaha.